Last week, GT World Challenge America's GT Rivals Championship took on the hills and valleys of Spa-Francorchamps, marking the halfway point of the season. In this 8-round championship, we've completed 4 events in America, Italy, France, and Belgium. This week, we'll head somewhere else entirely, Suzuka, Japan, for round number 5 of the season. We spoke last week about famous corners, Eau Rouge and Raidillon at Spa, but Suzuka Circuit has one corner that has almost the same fame. They call it 130R. A daunting, high-speed left-hand corner in the final sector. Alan McNish's 2002 crash meant the corner was reprofiled, but it kept the same name of the original 130-meter radius corner. Today, we'll race into the dusk in a 60-minute esports event with drivers of sports car fame from around the world and sim racers from Champion Motorsports. Welcome to SRO America's GT Rivals. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Ryan Marine for round number 5 of 8 as we enter the latter half of the season, Ryan.
Hey Kyle, thank you so much, and you're right, we just go from strength to strength here with GT Rivals at Assetto Corsa Competizione. Look at the tracks on this calendar, from a classic like Spa, we started the season at Laguna Seca, and now here at Suzuka, one of the classic circuits anywhere in the world. It's fantastic, and I'll tell you what, watching these GT3 cars go around this track is fantastic as well. Really curious to see what qualifying looks like. We've shown week after week that qualifying is of crucial importance, but without a doubt, I think we're in store for a fantastic 60 minutes of racing once we get going.
Absolutely. So qualifying is just about underway right now. We'll have a little bit longer to get some times in here, Ryan, but we saw last week at Spa, the opening couple laps were pretty wild, especially when we got to the end of the long straight, the Kemmel Straight at Spa-Francorchamps. There was a big accident down there into that corner. What about about Suzuka? When you head down into turn number 1, it's a lot different looking than Spa. How do you think the first lap is going to go here tonight?
Well, 1 and 2 certainly maybe a little bit less daunting than that initial climb up the hill there at Spa last week. But then you've really got to get it sorted out to get through the S curves and then up into the next section of this track where it's not great to be battling side by side if you can help it. Nevertheless, I think there's always danger at the start of these races. It's an opportunity for one thing, and drivers therefore are likely to be quite aggressive. But even with that in mind, there has to be some circumspection. How do you get through this with a car intact that you can still go racing with once we get through that opening lap? So, I mean, I expect to see what we've come to expect, which is to say some contact and some controversy at the beginning, but that's just the nature of racing, especially sim racing, I think we've come to learn.
Absolutely, and of course, we're 5 rounds through the season, so we're past the halfway point now. We want to take a moment to thank the amazing sponsors that have come on board to help us out with this season. Of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione for giving us the platform on which to race. Of course, ASUS and Republic of Gamers and TUF Gaming, they are offering weekly prizes that you can win if you enter in the chat below, and we'll give you information as the night goes on here. Of course, Fanatec, SimLab, and Champion Motorsports for being a part of this. Of course, AWS for bringing this stream around the world. CrowdStrike, Pirelli Tires, Rebellion Timepieces, Total, Optima Batteries, Skip Barber Racing School, 511, and of course, SRO America for giving us the opportunity to be here today, Ryan. So 15 minutes left in qualifying. There is a new name at the top of the board already, and it is Nick McMillan. And I think that Heitkotter is going to have a lot of work to do if he wants to beat this number 3 car.
It's quite interesting because they have a very similar background. Nick McMillan, also a GT Academy graduate, a GT Academy champion that led to a professional racing career both here in the States where he's from. He's from Portland, Oregon, Salem, Oregon, excuse me, and also doing some racing overseas. He's a class winner in the 24 Hours of Dubai. If you go back and look at his racing CV, haven't seen him on a racetrack much in recent years, but he can still get it done. And not a surprise to see him up towards the top. He was very impressive in the practice session that preceded this broadcast, as is his custom. We did not see much of Brian Heitkotter in that practice, but we expect him to be up towards the top as well. But what's been fun about this championship is, as we've gone along, we've had a new cast of characters, it seems like, rotating in and week out, including some new challengers, and McMillan certainly is going to be one to keep an eye on.
We have a couple other new challengers this week. Of course, we have Peril in his Ferrari 488 this week, and he was pretty quick in practice earlier today, and he's in a bright red Kessel Racing Ferrari. There he is on screen now. Down in 31st, has yet to put in a lap time, Ryan, but I do think he's going to be a driver that will at least run top 1090. He's very familiar with the Assetto Corsa Competizione and with this 488 machine, so I expect Peril to be really, really solid today as he starts his qualifying efforts.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. David Peril is South African, domiciled in London these days. He's a real-world driver with some pedigree. Finished second in the GT World Challenge Europe Pro-Am Cup category, racing for Rinaldi Racing a year ago in a Ferrari. He also drives for Kessel Racing, which you mentioned as well. Does a lot of driving for Ferrari, but has a big background in sim racing. He actually, in this downtime that we found ourselves in, has gone and created Coach Dave Academy. It's an esports program where he's helping some people who are interested in getting into sim racing, and he's kind of made a name for himself with some of his streams racing in esports in various events. He was busy. He was racing in the European SRO race earlier today, now dropping in to join us here in GT Rivals, which is great. Another driver with a great deal of experience, both real world and virtual, and a nice following as well. It'll be awesome having him as part of our field here at Suzuka.
So we got, of course, a great mix of real-world sports car drivers as well as just esports drivers as well from Champion Motorsports. One of them, Brandon Ulay in the number 333 Mercedes. We've seen him before, and he's pretty quick right now, second on the board as Shimshat goes to the top with a 159.412. But I wanted to take a look at the left-hand side of the screen, the number boards there. The white backgrounds are the professional drivers. You can add the red backgrounds as well. And the gray background drivers are those from Champion Motorsports. And Ulay currently the quickest of them. And Andrew Worden in the 616, he is in a Mercedes AMG as well today. Those drivers, both inside the top 5, they're going to be hard to beat, even with the professional experience that the rest of the drivers have.
Well, that's right, and it's been a great talking point throughout our championship to this point. We've had a rotating cast from the Champion Motorsports stable. They've been a huge help kind of behind the scenes as SRO America branches out into this esports world, and it's been fun featuring some of the Champion Motorsports drivers on a weekly basis. There have been 5 of them, I believe, in every race that we've done so far, and often equipping themselves quite well against the pros, and that's been one of the fun storylines here. These are people with a great deal of experience racing here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is new to a lot of our pro drivers. And early on, I think there was an experience gap that proved beneficial for the Champion Racing drivers that's been closing as the weeks have gone on. But even still, the quality from the sim racing community is very, very high. And week in and week out, a couple of them feature in podium contention or even challenging for a race win, like we saw from Josh Staffen going back a couple of weeks.
So with 10 minutes left in qualifying, Shimshak's at the top of the board. We know Kevin Bohm was on a quick lap. He goes 5th quick. One of the drivers last week that we really didn't get a lot of opportunity to talk about was Logan Seavey in the 67 Mercedes. He started really well last week, got caught up in a collision on the opening lap, but he's been so fast, comes from a dirt racing background, Ryan. I'm excited to see if he can make it through the end of lap 1 this week. He might be a competitor for at least a top 5 spot today, maybe even a podium.
Well, he's making it clear it's no fluke. He had top 10 pace in qualifying last week at Spa. Here at Suzuka, so far, same thing. 10 minutes still to go, and a lot can change, but right there you can see him in that beautiful Mercedes AMG GT3, 7th on the leaderboard at the moment. Really impressive. He's a USAC national champion in the midgets. He finished 4th at the Chili Bowl earlier this year, which is an amazing event. If you're not familiar with it, it's often over 400 entries fighting there. So just to make the main is a huge deal. And not only did he do that, he finished just off the podium there. An immense talent on dirt. He's done a lot of open wheel racing on dirt, like I said, in the USAC ranks, but also done some NASCAR racing and ARCA racing on dirt at places like DuQuoin and Springfield, and also at Eldora in a truck race for Kyle Busch, interestingly enough. So it takes a ton of talent to be fast, jumping back and forth between those kind of cars, and it's not a surprise to see him adapting quite nicely, the young Californian, to GT3 racing here in Assetto Corsa.
And Peril goes second quick in the 111 Ferrari, so move him up inside the top 5. Heitkotter goes third quick. McMillan back down in 5th, though. So those two are going to be head-to-head once we get rolling, but they have a lot of competition. I think we saw this at Spa last week as well. I know Heitkotter just drove away, as he's used to doing, but it seemed like in qualifying, at least, the rest of the field has caught up to these drivers, Heitkotter specifically. And I'm not sure that we can guarantee a Heitkotter victory today. It seemed like he wouldn't last week at Spa before the collision in turn 1. So if we have a full field at the end of the first lap, Heitkotter's going to have to run for his money today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. David Peril ups the ante big time. Christian Shimshank, who was new to GT Rivals last week, I should say, started on pole. Right now, he's got the pace to do that again. That's a pretty big gap, 0.3 of a second between himself and Peril. Really remarkable stuff. He told us post-race that he's been sim racing forever. So he does have that background, even if maybe he's not a household name either in sim racing or in the real world. But I will say, we saw him last year in Pirelli GT4 America really impress in the Murillo Racing Mercedes-AMG GT4. So really cool to see him strutting his stuff here. He's got some help from his real-world teammate Kenny Murillo, who's got his Mercedes up in 6th right now. You could see it right there in the traditional Murillo Racing colors. Beautiful-looking race car. That stable is awfully strong, and I tell you, you just look at these names up at the top. It just seems to get stronger and stronger every week. And Kitten Cook, you got to throw into the mix too. He opted to sit out last week, back with us here in that purple Aston. He's been a factor in terms of raw pace, if not ultimate results, every single week he's taken part. So it's a great field. It only gets stronger, and as the drivers get more experience with ACC, the caliber of their performance in sim racing only increases.
For sure, there's Colin Mullen in the Andretti Autosport number 23 car, so he's rolling around right now down in 23rd place. Guy Cosmo as well, and there's a couple names down here that haven't had the best of laps in qualifying so far that we should mention. Of course, Mullen down in 23rd, Corey Lewis in the number 48 Lamborghini, he sits 25th, and Tom O'Gorman, a new livery on this car this week, Ryan. He's got ASUS Republica Gamers on board this car, new partnership with Tom O'Gorman alongside Valvoline for his esports program. Had a little bit of trouble last week at Spa, but was up inside the top 5 for at least the first part of the race. If he can get a solid qualifying lap in, he might be a force to be reckoned with, as he has been in at least the beginnings of races. Just needs to finish him out in one piece.
Yeah, we saw at Misano he's capable. He had some setbacks there too, but he had a top 10 finish. He finished 7th at Laguna to start the season, 8th at Misano, and just did not have much luck last week at Spa. Finished 22nd, not the result he was looking for. And certainly for the Honda contingent, this is an important event, even though it is the virtual Suzuka. Honda and Mobility Land with the big stake here in this track. It was actually conceived by the Honda company to build this track here at Suzuka initially as a test track, and obviously it's gone on to become one of the great circuits around the world. So they take a great deal of pride as a brand in competing well and getting good results on home turf, not just in Japan, but here at Suzuka specifically.
Of course, you might want to check the chat and enter to win. Of course, with that ASUS tie-in there, you can win yourself an ASUS TUF Gaming graphics card and a copy of Assetto Corsa Competizione, so make sure you enter to win in the link in the chat below. Whether you're on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, find that chat and enter. Can't win unless you try. And get yourself a brand new graphics card to put in your gaming machine and run Assetto Corsa Competizione on it. So, with just about 5 minutes left in qualifying, we'll check back in on a couple other drivers we haven't mentioned yet today. Nelson Mason in the number 10 Lamborghini was a force in the early part of the race. He had his wheel shut off, kind of a technical failure there last week, and that's why he dropped down the order, but he's going to be quick again today for sure.
Yeah, 7th place last week at Spa. He was 14th at Paul Ricard the week before when he debuted with us, but really ran better than that. I don't think that was a representative finish. And I would even say the same for his 7th place last week. There were some ups and downs for him, no doubt about it, but he's proven to be a factor, if not necessarily for a race win, then certainly a top.
4 minutes and 40 seconds left in qualifying here. We'll, of course, we've got lots of drivers making their way to the top of the board, including Brian Heitkotter. He just ran a 1:59.3, puts him to the top of the board, 24 thousandths in front of Oulet in the 3:33. David Pearl drops to 4th best. Christian Shimshak to 3rd. Nick McMillan back in 5th. Kenton Cook goes 7th quick. Dakota Dickerson in his number 72 Ferrari back in 9th.
Yeah, Dakota's been a revelation, no question about it. He's finished in the top 10 on several occasions, really one of the most consistent competitors that we've had out of this group, and flying the flag for Ferrari in a lot of instances in our races. So a young guy with a lot of talent, certainly from the open wheel ranks, and showing what he can do here in the GT3 Ferrari as well.
Brennan Dulé goes to the top of the board, a 1:59.1. That's the quickest lap we've seen today. And he'll take his 333 Mercedes to the top of the board. Other manufacturers we haven't really touched on a whole lot yet. The Porsches. We have Will Bamber here today, and this is his first GT Rivals event in his Porsche 911.
Cool to see the Singha beer livery on that car. That's a partner that his team that he runs with his brother Earl Bamber Motorsport. They race in GT World Challenge Asia. They've got a big program scheduled for this year, and it's actually a big partnership with that Singha beer company there that helps to back that program. So great to have Will here as part of the mix. A lot of people know his brother Earl for the factory Porsche driver for his various exploits, but the young brother is awfully fast as well. Has had a lot of success, primarily racing Porsches in the Asia Pacific and of course in Australia and New Zealand as well, where he's from. But a great deal of talent, and a guy I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about in the years to come.
So just shy of 3 minutes left in qualifying, and Dulé still has pole. A couple other drivers to touch on. We mentioned Guy Cosmo. Alec Udell is back this week in the number 22 Aston Martin. He's down in 22nd, or 25, Aston Martin down in 22nd place. Apologies there. Will Bamber looks like he might have lost connection there, or some other sort of small issue, because he has dropped off my timing screen here. Corey Lewis is also listed as down in 27th. I'm surprised that we haven't seen him jump up the order here a little bit, but this track is so technical, kind of a different racetrack than Spa we raced at last week, Ryan. It's a little bit narrower, and it's still just as fast, but it seems like this track, the margin for error is a little bit smaller than Spa-Francorchamps from last week.
Yeah, I agree with that. You don't have as much runoff, paved runoff, as you saw at Spa. And the downside of that at Spa is then, you can go out there, but you're going to run afoul of track limits. Here, the track limits in most places are a concrete wall. So that makes that nice and clear, which makes it easier for us and the stewards to be sure. But one of the things I love about this Suzuka track layout is no corner is alike. Even through the S's, each of the S's has a very unique character and identity. It's not the same as the one that came before it. And really, if you look at the track map, you cannot find a corner that resembles another one on the track. They're all unique, all challenging. And to keep in mind, in addition to that, now you've got to deal with some traffic here as you're trying to throw down a fast lap. And we've seen that come into effect in previous weeks, where there have been some guys starting further back than their outright pace would indicate, primarily because they just haven't had a clean lap in qualifying.
And some drivers that were trying to get a clean lap, Tom O'Gorman did finally get one in. He'll only be 17th quick right now. Logan Seavey's dropped down to 11th. Andrew Worden in the 6:16 is 10th best. Looks like Kevin Bohm has jumped up into 5th and is number 90. But otherwise, we haven't seen a whole lot of movement. There's, of course, Lance Bergstein back in the 94 car this week, down in 18th place. And more drivers like Dirk Grunveld in the number 136 BMW. That's that bright orange car in your screen right now. So I think there's a lot of drivers in here that aren't really sure what to expect at this racetrack. The opening corners, that double right-hander, that's a tricky corner to pass into, especially when we're starting from such a slow roll here at Assetto Corsa Competizione. So I think really the corner for me that's going to get really dicey is on the far side of the course, the middle sector, as we head towards the double right-hand kick that heads under the crossover bridge. That's where it's going to get real tight. That's a pinch point at this facility. Going to be really interesting to watch as qualifying checkers are out here.
Yep, so anyone on a flying lap, they can still complete it, and we got word that it looks like Kenny Murillo might be on a charge right now, so let's keep an eye on him. He's currently 7th. But to your point, this is a really unique track layout in the fact that it actually crosses over itself, basically a figure-8 track to some degree, and it's only one of 2 FIA Grade 1 tracks in the world that is a figure-8 layout, Fiorano being the other. So we're talking about one of the most unique racetracks anywhere on the planet, and that particular aspect of this track I think is particularly quite compelling.
See the crossover right there as Murillo heads over into 130R, which again has been reconfigured and reprofiled since the 2002 crash of Alec McNish there, that has kind of necessitated some circuit changes as Murillo's going to pull off to the side of the racetrack. Kenton Cook is on track right now. Doesn't look like he's on pace for a faster lap or a slower lap. Looks like it's going to be par for the course as he heads down the hill through turn 18, and we'll ride on board as he comes across the line to see if he can improve this lap. And it'll be a 159.7 that he needs to beat. As he hits the stripe, it'll be a 159.9 that he runs, so he'll stay P8 for now. A lot of the drivers have jumped off the racetrack here, Ryan, so I think it's about time that we take a look at the timetable here to show you our top 10 in qualifying. There's only a few drivers left, so I don't really envision this changing a whole lot. But Ulay, again, from Champion Motorsports in the 333, a 159.1 by 2/10 over Heitkotter. That looks to be pole position.
And those 2/10 came in that final sector. You can see it right there. Just a really, well, actually in that middle sector, and very fast in the final sector too. Okay, now I understand what I'm looking at. Sorry, it was the third sector that was crucial. 2/10 there. That's where the difference was between Ulay and Heitkotter for the second straight week. Heitkotter is going to have to start on the outside of the front row. You'll recall last week we had a little bit of confusion coming to the start of the race, and it was a bit unknown where the green flag would come as far as Christian Shimshak, our pole sitter, was concerned. We should have no such confusion here at Suzuka. It should be nice and plain, but great lap from Ulay. Heitkotter certainly in a good position where he can challenge for a win. Shimshak, Peril, Bohm, McMillan, Murillo, Cook. No surprises whatsoever in our top 10.
Yeah, I think we kind of found who the quick ones are here, and that doesn't mean that someone from outside the top 10 isn't going to surprise us today, but I think we've kind of solidified at least the podiums lately with Heitkotter performing so well, and Shimshak had such a strong start, obviously had some issues at Spa, but we're going to see very similar names, I think, today. But Logan Seavey back in 11th, Mason in 12th, Carl Whitmer's had some good runs, he starts 13th, so there are some drivers outside the top 10 I do think we'll see come forward, but look at the manufacturers represented in this, the 23, 24 drivers you can see on screen here. We got Porsches, the Acura NSX, Bentley Continental GT3, Huracans, Aston Martins. This is what's so great about GT3 racing is the variance of cars, especially down in the 12th through 20th. There's a lot of manufacturer diversity there.
Yeah, that's the beauty of GT3 racing. The rules basically are to the manufacturers, you build cars, that's what you're good at, now take them to us and we'll find a way to equalize them. And so as a consequence, you get such a great diversity of appearances, of sounds, philosophies. It's beautiful, and I love the fact that you can have a Bentley Continental and a Ferrari side by side racing on pretty much equal footing. It really speaks to the technical department that the SRO has, and all of that carries over into Assetto Corsa Competizione as well. Just a great array of manufacturers on the grid as usual. And while, yes, maybe a certain track might favor a certain manufacturer, over the course of a season that evens out. And what we have is a battle royale between some of the finest car manufacturers anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. So with our gridding process underway now, we're going to step away for a very brief break. We'll be right back with your track map, your track guide, and the pace lap to begin our 60-minute GT Rivals event, round number 5 of the season. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Suzuka Circuit in Suzuka, Japan for round 5 of 8 in SRO America's GT Rivals Esports Invitational. 60 minutes of racing lie ahead of us at this 18-turn, 5.8-kilometer circuit. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by SRO America's Ryan Marine, And we may be 5 rounds into the season, but the action has not, even for a second, slowed down since we started at Laguna Seca in April. Ryan, this is going to be a fun one today, round number 5 of 8.
If anything, it's only picked up in intensity. It's been fantastic to see so many drivers buying in, becoming more and more involved as the weeks have gone along, and here we are in Suzuka. What a beautiful track, a great place to test the best of the best from the SRO America paddock. Not just GT World Challenge America and the GT3 ranks, but we've got drivers from Pirelli GT4 America and TC America in the field as well, plus our friends from Champion Motorsports on the e-racing side. It's a terrific grid, a couple of guest drivers as well from the USAC ranks, from Asia, from the European SRO Championships. It's going to be stunning.
Absolutely. Let's take you through a lap here at Suzuka Circuit, Ryan, because this racetrack is 5.8 kilometers. It's long. It takes about 2 minutes to get around here, but here is a look at the track guide. This is a track that you have actually been to in the real world, Ryan. It's been a little while, but it hasn't changed all that much since you were there.
Yeah, 1998 was the last time I was there. My family was living in Japan at the time, so that famous Ferris wheel that you see by that front straightaway, I can say I rode in that Ferris wheel at one time. But a beautiful track, no doubt about it, designed in 1962 by the Dutch track designer Hans Hugenholtz, and actually conceived by Soichiro Honda, no less. So this very much has Honda in its DNA, so a big weekend here for the Acura and the Honda boys. But a beautiful track that challenging turn 1-2 complex that leads into the S-curves, a beautiful piece of real estate, not just going left and right, but up and down as well, undulating elevation changes, just a beautiful part of this great circuit.
And right in the middle of the screen, there's 130R, that high-speed left-hand corner. We're going to talk about track limits quite a bit today in a few different areas of the circuit, but I think 130R is the big one, Ryan. You're carrying so much speed. You're maybe a downshift there, a touch on the brakes, but almost flat out in most race cars through there. It's a fun racetrack for sure, but that heads into one of the better passing zones on the racetrack. That final little chicane, the right-left combination, 16, 17, 18. It's really tight, though, so passing opportunity, yes. A lot of room, no. And we're going to see some side-by-side, door-to-door contact. The sports car way heading back onto the front straight here at Suzuka.
Yeah, they call it the Casio Triangle, a crucial part of this racetrack, leading onto the pit straightaway, which is a fast run back down to turn 1, where, once again, you might have a chance to try and set up a pass. So, crucial section. A place where you can try and go side by side, but there's some risk involved as well by doing so, not just because of contact, but it compromises your exit onto that front straight.
So you're looking right now at the racetrack, and especially that straightaway leading up to 130R. You're kind of shadowed by trees on the right and the left. You head over the bridge that passes over the other part of the racetrack, then through 130R. But the S's section, that's really a rhythm section. If you get one corner wrong there, Ryan, it completely messes up your entire lap. There's a lot of time to be gained there, not by passing people, but it's really just a setup sequence of corners. If you get it right, you're fast. If you get it wrong, you're slow.
You're totally right. And if you do mess up and you get behind, you're probably not going to get back on rhythm at any point throughout that challenging section. You just get behind the 8-ball, and the corners come at you so fast through that part of the racetrack that it's impossible to get past it. And you're really going to be hurting in terms of lap time and putting yourself in a position where perhaps your opposition can take advantage. So a crucial part of this track here as they come through the first turn, that 1-2 complex here for the first time.
So they're going to get a lap to warm up their tires and get their brakes nice and toasty red hot for the first lap down here. And this was a trouble spot at Spa-Francorchamps last week, was the first couple of corners after Eau Rouge Radillon. Then the chicane afterwards was where it all broke loose. So I think a lot of drivers have decided maybe we'll take it a little bit easier this week. We'll make it to the end of the lap because this track is a lot narrower. The passing opportunities are, I think, farther apart than at Spa. So you have to be a lot smarter about this, especially if you're starting deeper in the field. Don't get yourself in trouble. We've seen at the front of the field drivers getting penalties, spinning out, all sorts of issues, and they still rebounded to have an okay race. But we saw last week Shimshak especially had such a good run going and ended up not really getting the result he probably deserved. So we're going to see him maybe be a bit more conservative. 60-minute race, there's no need to try to win it in corner number 1.
Well, you say that, and every driver will tell you that too, but if I've learned anything about race car drivers from covering them over the last 5-6 years or so, is that all goes out the window as soon as the green flag comes out. You can talk about it, you can have a plan, you can say, yeah, we need to be there at the end, but if there's an opportunity to make a pass, you're not a racing driver if you don't take it. So I expect that we're going to see some folks aggressive off the start in spite of what they might have told us here in the build-up to today's race.
Absolutely. Another thing you're going to notice is how low the sun is in the sky. This race is going to transition into the dusk, so the headlights will have to come on towards the end of the race, and you have to make sure you have the headlights on. And I think one final key to the race, we've already gone over a couple track limits. 130R, keep yourself in control of your vehicle. Keep it within the white lines. If you go outside, you'll get yourself a penalty, and that is going to make your day a lot worse than it could be.
Yeah, that's right.
Checking in, I think McMillan did not make it out to the racetrack potentially. Wanted to check in. Yeah, he's still in pit lane, so maybe starting from the pits in the number 3 car. Not sure why that would be the case here, Ryan, but maybe just trying to stay out of the trouble. But he qualified 6th, so I'm not really sure why that was the case. Maybe a technical issue, perhaps.
Well, I hope if it is a technical issue, he can get it sorted because he's a welcome addition to our grid. Like I said during our qualifying coverage just a little bit ago, he's a GT Academy champion, as is Brian Highcotter, and we've seen how good Brian is. I expect McMillan to be right there on that pace as well, and his pace in qualifying certainly indicated that he could be. So hopefully he gets it sorted and he can get it back out and running here before too long. Hopefully just a pit lane start and puts on a show for us charging up through this field.
So everyone has finished warming up their tires. They're now in 2 very even rows as they head to 130R under formation lap conditions. In just a minute, we're going to turn them loose for 60 minutes around this 5.8 kilometer track. This is going to get really interesting. We're also hearing that Apparel, has had issues with his internet all day today. So we're going to see if he can stay in. He's currently lined up and in position, but we'll see if that becomes an issue throughout the rest of the race.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on his internet connection. You can actually see the various color bars next to the names of the drivers there in our leaderboard, and that indicates their internet connection, which is so crucial in a race at an esports event. So we'll see what he can do. He's a great sim racer, racing from Europe. He's doing a lot of streaming as well, so it's putting a bit of a strain on his internet connection. Hopefully it holds up.
Here we go, 60 minutes, round number 5 of SRO America's GT Rivals Esports Invitational from Suzuka Circuit in Suzuka, Japan. 60 minutes into the sunset here as we all get lined up on the front straightaway. Over 30 cars, almost 40 cars here today, the largest field that we've had in GT Rivals. Green flag flies and we're racing at Suzuka. They fan out as the run down to turn 1 is underway. 3, 4, 5, 1 in the background. Cars spinning. It's Tom O'Gorman. He's gone around for a loop. And everybody's in the fence. That's Grunfeld in the car. There's also, looks like that is going to be Will Bamber, who's also gone around for down in turn number 1. So some issues already as we head through the S's for the first time here, Ryan.
Well, you hate to see it happen on the straightaway, but I will say that was a bit of a fraught start. It looked like Uwe anticipated an earlier green flag. It started to accelerate out of that turn 18 onto the pit straight and had a bit of a gap over Highcotter and then had to slow down. And that's never ideal when guys see the car in front of them start to accelerate and then all of a sudden slow down. That puts you in a difficult position. It does look like Nick McMillan did make it out onto the track. That's the good news. And we're going to have some fun charting his progress. But look at this. Pole sitter Uwe had dropped back to second. Brian Highcotter now leading this field. He's the only multiple race winner in the GT Rivals Championship so far, coming off his second consecutive win last week at Spa.
Then you see the line of race cars behind him. I don't think this is going to be a blowout today. Highcotter has the lead, but we still have 58 minutes and 45 seconds of action remaining as they head down into the middle sector. Now behind them, there was Kenny Murillo taking a look at Peril in the 111, unable to get by through. There's Kevin Bowman, Kenton Cook lined up behind it. Andrew Worden in the number 8 car, or the 8th place 616 car as they head towards 130R for the first time.
Nelson Mason into the top 10 now with a nice start there, and same with Carl Whitmer, who's up into the 10th spot, so good start for him in the NSX. We're on board with Murillo now, who's running in 5th. He's got Peril up ahead of him, trying to find his way through, but like you said, we got through that crazy opening sequence. Now you get settled into a rhythm. If you have an opening, you take it, but here early on, it's all about making sure you've got the setup figured out, making sure you're comfortable with the race car and sizing sizing up your opponents in the early stages.
And sizing up the opponents is Brennan Oulet. He's all over the back of Heidkotter through turn 1 for the second time behind. That was a big block down into turn 1 for Peril on Murillo. So he'll tuck back in line, Kevin Boehm, and then Kenton Cook has a mirror full of Andrew Worden behind in the 616. So really solid battles here in the opening part of the race. We'll try to take you to them if we see them. But there's action all over the racetrack now. I see in the background Logan Seavey's got Alec Udell behind him in the number 25 Aston Martin.
Now look at Logan Seavey, an ace on the dirt tracks, but showing he can do it on the road courses as well. Oh, but around he goes. That was some contact with Udell right behind him.
And he'll straighten it back out. Udell will as well, but that's going to leave one of the BMWs climbing back up through the field. That's Rude, Jacob Rude in the 810, so he's on through up to 12th spot now with that bit of a skirmish. And also Guy Cosmo taking advantage of it, jumping ahead of the 25 car. So Cosmo, again, last week had his first top 10 run in GT Rivals at Spa-Francorchamps, looking to do that again, and a pretty solid start for the number 8 PAX Racing car.
Somehow, Guy Cosmo had finished 23rd, I think, in every single race that he had done prior to last week. Maybe there was one he didn't, but just had not had any luck. Somehow ended up finishing in the same spot every time, it seemed like, and was able to put that bad luck behind him with a solid run last week. Really impressed with what he was able to do. I know he's been putting in a ton of work. Here's Shimshak, who was our pole sitter last week, and look at all these cars lined up behind him. Errol, in particular, really wants by. He's been kind of aggressive, and yeah, I think he threw a bit of a block there on Murillo a little bit ago, but I think also he was showing the nose at Shimshak, so it wasn't a completely defensive move. If there was a chance to make a move down the inside, I think he would have taken it as Shimshak runs wide. That opens the door for Peril.
And Peril's going to go down the inside. They touch there slightly. Shimshak pushed offline, and now Murillo with a good run on his teammate, unable to make the pass, though. Kevin Boehm sizing up. There's a trio of Mercedes-AMG cars as Kenton Cook lines them up with his Aston Martin platform machine as they run nose to tail down the front straight. That goes all the way back to, I believe, 11th place Ben Waddell in the 99 car. Oh, the Murillo Racing guys side by side through turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, a couple of teammates right there, those two Mercedes-AMG GT3s. There's another AMG right behind, or is that an Aston? Looks like that, oh no, there is another Mercedes. Is that Boehm? It looks like it might be. Look at this stuff, side by side through the S-curve. Not sure how long they can stay like this, but great driving, great respect shown by this bunch to this point.
Really solid action. Kenton Cook going to go way out to the outside of Kevin Boehm. That's really tight through the SS now. Will they touch? That was awful tight there as Boehm just eases ahead in the number 90 car in 6th place. There's Nelson Mason in behind in the Lamborghini, charging up from his 12th or 13th place starting spot. They're side by side again behind him. There's still Waddell to the inside now of the other Mercedes. It's getting wild out here right now as they head through the middle sector.
Man, this is great. I don't think they can keep this up for 54 minutes, but I hope they do. Mason taking a lunge.
Oh, touch!
Look at that, 3 wide, a little bit of contact, but still relatively clean.
Oh man, they're still not going to do each other.
Straight.
Oh my goodness, that was 3 wide for way too long. Kenton Cook backs way out. Boehm muscles his way through, as does the 10 car of Nelson Mason, so he's through into Spoon Curve. Behind him, there's the Acura NSX. That is Carl Whitmer's number 22. He's trying to find his way through this mess as they are on only lap number 2 right now, or make that 3 ride. It's getting wild. Oh, Whitmer gets turned off into the dirt by, I think that was Waddell.
That was a great save to keep that pointed relatively straight and mitigate the damage. He's going to lose some spots. That was Mullen going by just a second ago there in the McLaren, and now I think that's Rude in the BMW just behind now, but pretty good recovery. That looked like that could have been disastrous. His guy Cosmo's on the move.
And he just grabbed a spot from Alec Udell's number 25. These two have been fighting ever since Udell got into the other vehicle down in the S-curves there. Oh, it looks like the 8's going to run a little bit wide through the Casio triangle, get it lined back up, but Udell sets him up for a front straight pass here down into turn number 1. We're only 7 minutes into this, and it feels like we're on the last lap.
Oh my gosh, the action has been hot and heavy from the beginning. And what did I tell you? These guys, they talk about taking it easy. It never happens that way. Here comes Udell down the inside. Guy Cosmo, though, this is a nice sweeping corner here that tightens up in the second portion of it. So that outside lane actually, you can carry a lot of speed there. It's hard to make it stick just shoving it down to the inside like Udell tried to do.
Up at the front, Heitkotter has not been able to run away from Brennan Ulay, and this is not the car I thought would be chasing Heitkotter. I thought it would be the other driver, whose name is escaping me right now, Nick McMillan, but of course with his starting issues, he was not able to start up against Heitkotter. So Ulay putting pressure back on that number 5 car who has been so dominant in this series. I'm sure this dominance could be over today with Ulay so close behind.
Yeah, you don't know until it's all said and done. And one thing Heitkotter has been very good at is just being consistently fast, lap in and lap out. And that's what some of his competitors were talking about after the race at Spa last week. They could hang with him, but he never made a mistake and gave him an opportunity to close in or make an attempt to pass.
There's Carl Whitmer, and right behind him, I believe that is Colin Mullen. So that is actually a change in position. Mullen's gone down a spot right behind Ben Waddell, and then the 99 car. He's got Jacob Ruud behind him in the 810 classic BMW car. And this is a good run for Ruud so far. I believe he started a little bit farther down the field, so he's climbed up quite a bit and keeping himself out of trouble so far. And through 130R. This group has sort of kind of singled itself out. There's Ernesto La Cruz in the 296, again, one of these champion motorsports drivers, as the 810 chops through Castillo Triangle. That'll be a cut course penalty for him for sure. Track limits violation on that 810. Can't do that too many times, so get yourself a drive-through penalty as they run down the front straight. Mullen now with a mirror full of the 99 of Ben Waddell. Into turn number 1 now. Goes to tail, the 810 tracks out a little bit. Great battle for what is basically 10th position with Carl Whitmer just a couple tenths in front of Mullen right now. Nelson Mason in the number 10 Lamborghini has had a cracking start in his Huracan machine. Right behind him is Kevin Bohm in the number 90, putting pressure on him for the top 5 position right now. The sun in the eyes of the competitors as they head through the middle sector under the bridge. And that's going to be something that they're going to have to fight for the next 20 or 30 minutes or so as that sun sets. It's only going to get worse for the vision of these drivers until the sun dips below the horizon. Then they'll turn on the lights of these race cars and race into the darkness in Suzuka, Japan.
Can't wait to see what this track looks like under the lights. Right now you can see the glare that these drivers are dealing with. Here is Bohm sizing up the Lamborghini ahead of him. That's Nelson Mason taking a peek. Door is open and Mason slides wide. That's going to let Bohm slip to the inside and pick up the spot. That was the battle for 5th.
So 5th position goes to Kevin Bohm now, and there's also Andrew Warden not too far back in his Mercedes AMG car. So he's lining up a pass on these drivers if he can get through Dirk Grunewald, who was one of the drivers involved in that opening lap turn 1 crash. Kenton Cook right behind. He's in 8th place. Cook took an absence last week. Whoa, there's Grunewald around. He's had another issue, and this has not been a good race for the driver of the 136. He'll pull out of the way as the blue flags fly.
That's been a disappointing race to this point for Dirk. We expect a great deal. He's shown a lot of pace so far and just has not had a good start, and he's been stuck in the midst of some of the leaders running as a lap-down car, which is never ideal.
Boom up into 5th. Heitkotter still has an 0.8 of a second lead over Ulay. Actually, it's more like 0.6 as they work through the S-curves here. But Ulay is keeping him honest today, and we still have such a long time to go. Now it's about consistency here, Ryan. It's not going to be about who can run the quickest lap of the race. You have to run really solid laps for the next 49 minutes and 15 seconds, and whoever can do that better is going to win this race.
And the cars are going to change as the race goes along. You're going to be burning off fuel. That changes the way that the dynamics of the car operate. You're going to have tire wear to deal with. And also the track conditions are going to change a lot. Thinking back to our race at Paul Ricard that started during the daylight hours and then advanced into the night, we saw the track conditions change a great deal. So there's a lot that you have to stay on top of from behind the wheel in the driver's seat of these race cars, even in the virtual world, and that might provide some opportunities for some of the drivers chasing Brian Heitkotter, including Ulay right here, who we're riding on board with, to try and close that gap. Plus, especially as we get deeper into the race, we're going to have lap traffic, and that's caught Brian Heitkotter out in previous races, going back to, I think that was Misano, where he had an issue with a lap car that cost him a spot on the podium.
Well, one driver that just ran quicker lap than both of our leaders was David Perrell in the 111 Ferrari. You see him at the back of that shot. He's awful quick right now and is quickly reeling in those front two. So I wouldn't count this Ferrari. Oh no, the second place car around. Oulay's spun at the exit 130R. Perrell runs way wide to try to miss it. He'll get back rolling again, but Oulay from second place, a spin.
Talk about a heart in your throat moment for both of these drivers, and it just went from bad to worse there for Oulay as he missed the chicane down there at the Casio Triangle, I believe.
Now we're going to grab a replay here as Oulay worked through 130R. Here is a look at what just happened. Drives off into the corner. Let's ride on board and maybe watch his hand movements here. Gets into 130R. Does he clip the curb? No, he just gets in there too hot. Doesn't have quite enough downforce in that car. Tries to lock the brakes down, but that's a huge mistake for Oulay and could have cost him a chance at the win here. You have to be perfect. Consistency is the key, and spinning out will not win you a race.
Well, especially when the guy you're chasing has been basically inch perfect every single race we've seen him in. Brian Heidkotter just does not make mistakes. He's remarkably good at staying focused in these sim racing situations, which is not the easiest thing to do, quite frankly. So now it's David Perrell who's going to try and track him down. He's one that we had our eyes on from the start. I think he's got the pace and the sim racing experience to do it, but Brian Heidkotter is awfully fast and just really experienced in these kinds of situations. And now Oulay has this hungry horde of GT3 cars behind him. Oh boy, this is not going to be easy. Driving in your mirrors, trying to keep all of these guys at bay.
Both the Murillo Racing cars in 4th and 5th, and it's Kevin Bohm and another Mercedes Nelson Mason's Lamborghini. I see Andrew Worden as well as Kenton Cook in the background. So that's all the way back to 8th, fighting for a podium spot. Again, enter to win, and they'll chat below an ASUS TUF Gaming 1660 Ti, I believe, is what they're giving away. They're also can enter to win a copy of Assetto Corsa Competizione, so make sure you do that. But don't go away from the action here right now, because it's amazing for the 3rd spot. We're only about a quarter of the way through this race as the sun continues to set in the background, and it is on right now for 3rd.
Well, and it's been a pleasantly clean race. We've had some contact, we've had some spins, but we've really avoided some of the disaster that we've seen in early laps of some of these races in the past. Here's an aggressive move to the inside. Kenny Murillo, I shouldn't have said anything, because that's the kind of thing we were trying to avoid. Kenny, a bit optimistic. He did get up alongside, but that contact sent him into a spin, and now he's got a lot of work to do to try and make up for that.
So Murillo will drop all the way down into 8th position. Actually, that might be down into 9th now. Yes, it is, as he crosses the start-finish line, make it 10th. Or even 11th as the timing and scoring catches up to date. There's Ben Waddell right behind him. Kevin Bohm has Nelson Mason on his tail here, and Mason has been extraordinarily impressive so far in that Lamborghini, and behind started outside the top 10. Here he is in 5th, and had he not had the issues last week at Spa, I think he would have had a chance at a podium and maybe even as high as 2nd place last week. So he's going to be a threat to finish at least podium this week as well.
Totally agree. Right now, just outside of that podium, we're on board with Bohm here in 4th, looking back to Mason in 5th. We've got Worden and Cook doing battle behind. They're side by side there, or at least they were for a moment. That's Cook you're looking at in the purple Aston Martin, took last week off. Got a lap car there that everyone's going to have to work their way around. That's not ideal.
I think that's the 810 of Rude, who had his drive-through penalty. I believe that's for a track limits violation. We saw him cut the Casio Triangle a few laps ago. That could be what that's for. He's still showing in 13th. So that might be the team car. The other Toby Grahovic, and yes, it looks like it is, so my mistake there. So Grahovic running 28th, not having a good day, but his teammate won't either, as he has to hit pit lane here in the next few laps.
That's a real shame. That's what we're trying to avoid. A couple other drive-through penalties are up on the screen as well. You can see Shelby Blackstock, who's had a bit of a tough day as well. He's got that DT next to his name back in the 31st spot. Same for Will Bamber. And looks like there's been some, oh boy,
Blackstock,
today just got worse for Blackstock.
He's going to go off the racetrack, so damage to his car. So not a great day so far for the Acura NSX team. Again, this is their home track today, and the lead Acura is actually Carl Whitmer's number 22 back in 8th. So the showing hasn't been as strong as they would like, I don't think, with Tom O'Gorman getting turned around in the opening lap collision down in turn number 1. Tomo is currently scored in 20th place in his ASUS ROG and Valvoline sponsored car. He's got Kevin Anderson right behind him. This is a battle for 20th.
And not a great start for Tomo, like we've chronicled, and he's got a lot of pressure behind him here from Anderson. That's the Tech Sport Racing team owner, who's raced a lot in touring cars, and even when he's not racing, is certainly a fixture at the racetrack on our SRO America weekends. Great to have him here in the field and showing what he could do. And here we go, Kenny Murillo trying to recover just outside the top 10 here, looking to cross over that Aston. He's really chasing down Colin Mullen, so that Aston might be a lap down. Is that the case?
I believe that's Ben Waddell. It could be. I thought it was Ben.
Waddell
it is
by?
Waddell, yes. It is the 99 car. So move Waddell up to 11th, Murillo back to 12th, and Colin Mullen is in the top 10 spot right now, and both those cars are actually running a hair quicker. Waddell wasn't quite as quick last time by, but I think as a whole they've been closing in on this number 4 car. So Mullen now has to hold off both the Aston Martin and the Mercedes AMG behind him.
Colin Mullen is a really impressive young man and an impressive young driver at that. He was part of the Team USA scholarship that Jeremy Shaw is so influential in identifying young up-and-coming American road racers and sending them over to the Formula Ford Festival and Walter Hayes Trophy over in the UK. He's a graduate of that. He's raced Minis, he's raced McLarens, he's raced upper-wheel cars, and the consistent theme is no matter what you stick him in, he's awfully fast, racing alongside Jared Andretti and Rally GT4 America this year. Here's Ule, who has recovered all right, all things considered, but still has a very hungry Kevin Bohm in tow, trying to find a way by.
So that's the battle for third. Up at the front, though, Heidkotter continues to lead. David Perrell, though, is running just about as fast, and the last time through, he actually ran 0.6 of a second quicker. The gap is 3 seconds. I expect that will continue to drop. Perrell right now flying in his Ferrari 488. You see the lights flashing on the nose of that car to alert the lap traffic. I think Perrell is going to be the quickest car on the racetrack, and it's going to be a matter of time before he gets back to Heidkotter. We'll see if traffic plays any role in that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. We're starting to see the leaders dealing with lap traffic, and it's not just getting by them, but as you saw, sometimes it's not so simple. You've got cars going off in front of you, rejoining, sliding through the grass, and that can affect you in a big way. So David Perrell able to avoid any peril that time, pardon the pun, and now he's got another car right ahead of him, so a couple moving chicanes for him to deal with, unfortunately, on this lap. We'll see if he can still maintain the pace necessary to try and run down that Nissan up ahead of Heidkotter, who's also been dealing with some of these slower cars.
I believe that was Pesek in the Aston, and it looks like it was. So Pesek not having a great day either, down in 29th position. So he's struggling a little bit. Nick McMillan, remember we chronicled his issues at the start of this race. He's worked his way up to 27th, but again, not going the way that I think he would have expected. Ule has Kevin Bohm right behind him. This is a battle for third. Bohm's going to take a look into the corner, but can't quite get the nose up to the inside as they head through the middle sector.
Final step of the presumptive podium up for grabs here, and it's a little Mercedes on Mercedes action, it looks like. We've got Bohm in the slipstream. He has been so impressive. He's a multi-time SCCA runoffs national champion. He'll be racing in the touring car class in TC America once we get back up to racing once again. Has an association with the DXDT racing and CrowdStrike racing operation. That's why he's in a Mercedes here, despite his very real connections to Honda. He's an engineer for Honda in Marysville, Ohio, and most of his racing has been in Honda or Acura products, but showing what he can do in the Mercedes at the moment.
Well, look at that. In that shot, I saw in the background all the way back to Carl Whitmer's 8th place car, and we're looking right now at the battle for third. So we have that many cars, 5 of them, all in one camera shot, even 20 minutes into this race now, as Bohm tries to cross over Ule at the exit of turn number 2. Can't get it done. Nelson Mason is in behind, running consistently quick laps, but again, David Perrell at the front of the field in second, ran almost a full second quicker than Heidkotter. That gap is now down to 2.3 seconds. We're going to have a battle for the lead, and Heidkotter is about to have his throne taken away if Perrell keeps running at this pace.
That's right, but again, getting past Brian Heidkotter is going to be a challenge. Catching him, I think, is a foregone conclusion at this point, given David Perrell's pace. We'll see what happens when he actually gets there. Interesting to note that both of these guys were actually racing in the SRO Europe Championship earlier today. Neither of them had great finishes. I know in the case of Brian Heidkotter, he told us last week, or a couple weeks ago when he was doing that he chose to focus on the American race primarily because of the time zone issue. issues. But that said, maybe a little bit of extra seat time today has them extra sharp, and can't wait to see what the battle is going to look like when David gets there.
And we know that David Perril's been one of the drivers that has been very pro Assetto Corsa Competizione, which I think he really enjoys the simulator and likes how it feels. And again, of all the people that should have an opinion, he is one of them I would listen to. Again, if you're interested in purchasing Assetto Corsa Competizione, you certainly should. It's one of those sims that you get in and it just feels right. And I think Perril has discovered the same thing, and that's why he's fast in the sim as well as in the real world. And Heitkotter now solidly in the sights as he heads out of the final corner to complete lap number 11.
Well, I think one of the things about ACC is this is a GT3 simulator. That is the focus, and they put a ton of effort into making it the most realistic option for GT3 sim racing that you can find, and it's everything from the way the cars look on the inside to the way that they sound, which I think is absolutely amazing. The tire model, everything is so true to life, and the fact that the folks at Kunos were able to focus so heavily with this particular title on GT3 racing in particular has allowed them to create something that guys who are very invested in sim racing, like David Perril, come away awfully impressed by, and that says a lot.
Well, Waddell still got Kenny Murillo hot on his heels. These two have been locked in together for the last couple laps. It's now a battle for ninth. I'm looking for Colin Mullen, so he's had an issue a couple laps ago. He's dropped all the way down to 15th place, so a bit of an off for Mullen. So now that moves Waddell and Murillo up to 9th and 10th, and Kevin Bohm now in 11th. And wasn't Bohm battling for third spot, so he's had an issue as well.
Wow, a lot has changed all of a sudden, and wish we knew exactly what caused this to be the case. But yeah, one of our early front runners there, Kevin Bohm, running in 11th, as you say, Murillo in 10th, so a couple of fast cars there. Shimshak is back to 8th as well. So we've had a lot of changes here, as now Mason is chasing Oulet for 3rd. Whitney Cook is up to 5th, and how about Worden there in the 6th spot?
Yeah, so Bohm, again, last time by was a 220. Oh, a little bit of contact there with the lap car. A 220.265 last time through, so he's definitely had a spin. Whether it was contact with a lap car or something else, we're not quite sure. But back in 11th, he's got Alec Udell behind him, and Ernest De La Cruz. He's one of the champion motorsports guys who's running up inside the top 15 right now, putting pressure on Udell and then Aston Martin.
Great to see the Porsche there. It's a really beautiful race car. I love the 911. You can see the heritage of Porsche in that car. What I think is so cool about the 911 is you can look at a modern one and look at one from 40 years ago, and you can see basically a lot of the same lines, and there's not many cars in the world that have been so consistent for so long. It's an iconic shape, iconic sound with the flat 6, just an absolute classic, and every time they update it, I think Porsche does such a great job of doing so in a way that it's true to the heritage of the car and of the brand.
So Perril continues his assault on the gap between him and Heitkotter. Heitkotter's turned it back up a little bit, so last time by ran a 2:01.3, and Perril was about a 10th slower than that. Behind him, Kenton Cook has a mirror full of Nelson Mason in the number 10. They've actually just traded spots. Mason dropping back one spot to 5th.
That's right. That's a spot change of position there, with Kenton Cook able to get by Mason. And we talked about this several times ad nauseum, it seems, but Kenton Cook, every time we've seen him, has been fast and cannot buy a break. Had a fuel issue at the end of a race at Paul Ricard, had some contact. Some of it was self-inflicted, and I think he'd admit that, but sometimes things out of his control have sidelined a podium run. Not a great qualifying effort, still solid, put him in a position where he could challenge, and he's done just that. Just a really nice run up to 4th right now, and at the risk of jinxing him, I'm going to go ahead and keep on praising him here. He's got some work to do to try and run down the way up ahead, but you can see he's in sight, and that's always what you like as a driver, right? If you can see the guy you're chasing, it gives you that extra bit of impetus, and he's got the bit between his teeth, I'm sure of that.
There's Kevin Bohm in the number 90. Again, he slipped back a couple laps ago into 11th spot. He's pulled away from Udell, but battling with Dirk Grunveld, who was a lap down. And so he'll move himself past that car. Going back up to the front, though, because we don't want to leave too far. We're kind of curious what Heitkotter's going to run this time across the line. And this lap for him, a 2-minute 2:01. We hadn't quite gotten to the line yet. That time a 2:01.3 for Perril. How about a 2:09.51 seconds? That was pretty quick. 4/10 better than Heitkotter and closed that gap down to 1.6.
Yeah, that's taken a chunk out of that advantage, nearly a half second gone. Really impressive stuff. And a couple laps ago, there were 2 laps in succession that Peril was about a half second up on Highcotter. What we can't say definitively is whether or not traffic had something to do with it, or if that truly is just the pace discrepancy at this point in the race. One thing Highcotter has always done in our races to this point in the championship is when he has a lead, he does a good job of managing it, not necessarily going 10 tenths to try and expand it, but doing just enough. That looked a little bit hairy there a second ago, but doing just enough to maintain that gap. But I think Peril does have something on him here at the moment, and really is doing a great job in that Ferrari to just lap after lap, knock out consistent laps, and put himself in a position where he's going to be on that rear wing here before too much longer.
So checking back in on a couple of drivers we haven't really talked about since the drop of the green flag. Logan Seavey's number 67 back in 15th. Tom O'Gorman, remember we saw him turned around on the opening lap in turn number 1. He's battled back to a 16th place position right now, and I think he's doing a pretty good job given the circumstances. He's up 2 tenths on his best lap right now. Maybe if he could get himself a top 15 or top 14, I think he'd be pretty satisfied given the way that this race started in his ASUS Republica Gamers car. But he has to catch Logan Seavey, who's a little ways up the road, about 8 seconds worth to catch that 67 car.
And quite frankly, for Tom, it's been a little while since he's been able to put a race together. Finished 7th in the season opener at Laguna, 8th at Misano in round 2, and just has not had a result of the caliber that he's been looking for since then, coming off a 22nd place finish at Spa last week. So not a great start to this one, but here we are. We're not even halfway home yet. A lot can change, as we've seen week in and week out. And I think there's still a chance for him to race his way up close to the top 10 if a few things fall his way and he can avoid some bad luck. And that at least would be salvaging a decent result.
Back up at the front, you see Highcotter and Peril, about 1.3 seconds separating them. Last time by for Highcotter, a 2:01.2. For Peril, another 2 minutes, .921 again. So he's really on the button right now in terms of going fast and closing in on that race leader. But again, once you get there, it's a whole different thing to pass a driver like Brian Highcotter. We haven't really seen anybody be able to run him down once he's gotten free and clear. So this is kind of uncharted territory for the race leaders here.
Yeah, you're right. He runs a little wide there again, at least to my eye. Maybe that is where he wants to be, but it seems like he lost a bit of momentum, and Peril appears closer than I've seen him yet. Since, really, this is the closest anyone has been to Highcotter since the very start of this race. So, no doubt that Ferrari is closing in, and again, it should not be a surprise. I mentioned his credentials, 2nd in the GT World Challenge Europe Pro-Am Cup last year for Rinaldi Racing in a Ferrari. A lot of sim racing experience, and actually, as we've gotten deeper into this sim racing experiment that we've seen all around the world here in the last couple of months, Ferrari has come as a factory to David Peril to help them develop sim racing setups for their sim racing drivers. So he's someone that the Prancing Horse thinks very highly of, not just behind the wheel of a real Ferrari, but also here in the sim world.
Just at the halfway point here, 30 minutes remaining at Suzuka Circuit, and Peril entering the final set of corners now. Look at how much he's gained. That was a 2/10 gain through 130R. Now the gap is 1.1 seconds with half the race remaining. That's plenty of time, but don't put yourself in a position now where you're going to lose time. Don't do anything risky with a lap car. It's not the time to take chances. Towards the end of the race, if you're now within 5 or 6 tenths, then you take those dive bombs, you take those chances. Right now, I think you keep doing what you're doing. Don't change it because he's running down Highcotter, and that's hard to do.
Yep, exactly, and it's easy to get a bit over-anxious. You see that you're closing in, and you want to try and make that lunge that'll get you there, and you end up making a mistake that costs you. So still plenty of time, like you said. The first part of this challenge is basically done at this point, catching Brian Highcotter. Now it's about sizing him up, finding where he's weak, where you can pounce, and try and plot out a move. It's going to take a lot of planning and a little bit of luck and some good execution to get it done, but David Peril has shown he's got the pace. Certainly once he gets in front, he should be able to pull away, but trying to find a way past that really will be challenging.
Notable drive-through for Kevin Bohm's number 90 Crown Strike Mercedes. That was for contact with Shimshak on lap number 3, so he will have to come down and serve a drive-through. That'll drop Bohm down the order more. as we continue to stay on our lead battle, because this is one of the closest on the racetrack. Udell and Dela Cruz are having a scrap for 10th, but we're going to stay up front here. I'm just concerned about one of these drivers stepping too far over the limit now that they're getting a little bit racy here at the front.
Well, that's what both of these guys want to avoid, and I'd say drivers with less experience than these two in a situation like this, maybe you're worried about that, but I'm not too concerned about these guys. They've been very fast. They have a sterling CV of sim racing already to speak of, and just excellent drivers. So I think that we should be in store for a nice, clean, hard fight to the finish of this one between two excellent sim racers.
Well, note the sun has gone down, so now you're required to turn on your headlights in the next couple of minutes or risk receiving a penalty for that. So I think these front runners already have their lights on. They'll be set, but if anybody forgets to turn them on, that will be a penalty. The lights flashing on Heidkotter in front of him. That's the 31st place car of Toby Grahovic, and the leader is going to try to drive up underneath in turns 1 and 2. This is an important pass for Peril to make, and he will do it as well. And that time through ran half a second quicker still. So 6/10 back now to the lead is Peril from Heidkotter. And back in 10th place, we're going to briefly jump to Alec Udell. He's like, uh-oh. That was Dela Cruz that cut the final chicane. Casio Triangle got in too deep and just blew through the corner. That'll let, I think that's Merrill in the 39 car drive on through in his Porsche. So move Merrill up a spot. Dela Cruz down one. Logan Seavey now sizing up the 296. That one mistake is going to cost him maybe 2 spots as they head down into 1.
Definitely a costly error there. On board with Seavey in the Mercedes, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have a USAC dirt track star, mixing it up with some of the best road racers anywhere. This is so cool. One of the things that's been great about all this sim racing that we've seen in the last month or so is drivers from all kinds of different disciplines mixing it up, like a latter-day IROC race or something like that. And this is picture perfect. Just what I like to see. A USAC star racing against a sim racing star, racing against a guy who's made a career coaching drivers in Thomas Merrill, Alec Udell, a champion in GT4 over in Europe last year. Just a great field of drivers with varying backgrounds on an even playing field on the Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Here's your lead battle once again through 130R. Keep yourself within the track limits. Both of them do. Into the Casio Triangle this time. It'll be the 17th time that they're there. Look at how good Peril is on the brakes. Closes right up to the rear tailpipes of Heidkotter as they head through 17 and 18 and back down to the stripe to complete lap number 17. This is really, really impressive for Peril to run down Heidkotter like this. He's got 25.5 minutes to get the job done, and he's almost there.
And that Nissan punches a big hole through the air as well. It appears to be pretty stout in a straight line. It's not called Godzilla for no reason. Just a beautiful race car. Love the way it sounds. We saw it at Liqui Moly Bathurst 12-hour earlier this year, an Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli competition. And that Nissan was awfully fast on some of the long straightaways there. And what was really its swan song in international competition, well, so we thought, because now we have it here racing on a very international stage as part of GT Rivals. Here's Peril on board, stalking that Nissan, making his way up through the S-curves and out of those now, just hammering the curbs there, trying to find any advantage, and Heidkotter, to his credit, not providing any opportunities for Peril to pounce on.
It's just, the braking is amazing. Look at that. He just closes up 2 car lengths. Heidkotter speeding him a little bit on corner exit, but Peril is making up so much time in those hard braking zones. I'm looking to the final chicane as Peril's opportunity to make a pass, but he needs to be right on the rear bumper of that Nissan GT-R into 130R. My concern with that is maybe dealing with some aerodynamic push off the car in front. Not quite so bad on a GT3 machine as it is on a Formula 1 car, but still something to consider when you're going through that corner in basically 5th gear.
Well, it's been a major storyline in GT3 racing as well. Maybe you're right, not quite to the same level as some of those really high downforce settings you see in Formula 1, but without a doubt, these more recent generation GT3 cars produce a great deal of downforce, punch a big hole through the air, and when you're in that aero wash, it is a performance inhibitor. So luckily we've seen that maybe not quite represented to the same degree in the sim racing, and at at night it's going to be better. You're going to have cooler track temperatures, which means better grip for the tires, as well as better power for the engine. So I think there should be opportunities to stay close, but I do believe it's going to take a mistake from Heitkotter for Perel to be able to make this pass.
And he keeps inching in closer. Last time by for Heitkotter, a 201.173. For Perel, a 201.083. So about a tenth quicker for the trailing Ferrari. And there's other fights going on at the racetrack. We're going to stay up at the one in front for now because this is the one with the largest impact on the outcome of the race. With 23 minutes to go, the sun almost down all the way. Your visibility begins to decrease as darkness falls. The track cools, as he mentioned, so speeds pick up, and it feels like you triple your speed because you can't see as far. And look at Perel flashing the lights, trying to be a distraction in Heitkotter's mirror.
Well, I think it's going to take a little more than that. I know you got to try everything at your disposal, but Brian Heitkotter's a cool customer. I don't think flashing your headlights is going to throw him off too much.
Oh, here he comes. There's a lap car in front of him. That, I believe, is one of the PAX Racing cars. That's the number 9 of Patrick Byrne, and through is Heitkotter and Perel side by side for a second on the outside of the sweeping curve, runs all the way out to the edge of the track. That's going to cost him a couple tenths. That was an important pass, and he needed to get done a little bit quicker than that, so he did lose some time, but he's not completely out of touch yet with Heitkotter's Nissan.
That does provide some breathing room there for Brian Heitkotter at the front of this field. Not a ton, but you'll take anything you can get when you're in Brian's position. At least let you relax and maybe focus on your own line without having to be a little extra defensive, which can cost you in terms of lap time. Maybe that helps Brian here, but you know that could have just as easily held up Heitkotter and given the opportunity there for Perel to make the pass. I think lap traffic is going to have a lot to say about how this race plays out in the final 21 minutes and change.
Tracking out a little bit wide on the exit curbs of turn 17. So we're going to see Heitkotter go a hair quicker this time than Perel, but now with 21 minutes to go, we've seen about 2/3 of this race, and the final third is where everything is going to get pretty crazy here because the darkness is falling. As I mentioned, the lap traffic is going to get thicker. You see some more cars in front of Heitkotter now. Now it becomes when you catch traffic, because at Suzuka, we're in the S-curves right now. You catch a lap car here, and if they don't move out of the way, that's going to be extraordinarily costly to you versus catching them on the tail end of the lap where you have some places to pass.
And if you're catching a single lap car at a time like they're about to do here, there are ways for that lap car to be courteous, get out of the way, and not obstruct the leader's race. But as these guys keep moving forward through the field, lapping faster and faster cars, A, the speed disparity is going to be less, but B, you're going to have lap cars fighting for position themselves, and they don't want to break off that fight just to let the leaders through, and that looked a little bit nerve-wracking there for Perel with the car rejoining to his left, but at least both were able to get through there relatively cleanly. But the point being, as we get into some of these battles for position, it's going to be that much more difficult for the leaders to get their passing done.
One more time, if you're watching live, make sure you enter in the chat below to win an ASUS TUF Gaming graphics card and a copy of Assetto Corsa Competizione. Make sure you enter whether you're on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, and make sure you drop a like if you're on Facebook or especially on YouTube as well, and make sure you follow if you're on Twitch. And we look forward to having you guys around for the rest of the season. 3 more rounds after this. We head to Barcelona next week, so back over to the European side of things. But Perel now putting pressure on Heitkotter, as we've seen so far, closing back in this lap 6/10 now with less than 20 minutes to go.
20 minutes, still plenty of time, but as we get deeper and deeper into this, you get a little bit less patient, and you are right, he does close in so well under braking. Some of that is just the speed coming down. The gap is going to come down accordingly, but even still, Ferrari does look awfully nimble as we ride on board with Oulet. This is the final podium spot. There's Kitten Cook, and I know Kitten wants a podium. I know he wants to get this done, but he wants a clean race more than anything else, given the way his GT Rivals season has gone, and I wonder if he might be a bit more patient than we would have seen otherwise, given the misfortune that has come his way. And he'll take an opportunity if it presents itself, but I don't think we'll see him force the issue. Yeah, sometimes I say that some days you're the bat, some days you're the ball, and Kenta Cook was neither of those. It was mostly him just hitting himself over and over and over again with penalties, and it's so frustrating, especially if you think back to Paul Ricard. He was on pace for a podium result and ran out of fuel, and then what he did, because he needed to make it back to the finish line, he cut the final corner, and that gave him basically
basically a 90-second time penalty, which plummeted him all the way down to the bottom half of the top 20. Not what he wanted, but here he is back on the third place car of Ule, and the leaders are also 4/10 apart. I don't know which one we should watch here, Ryan, because it's awful close, but we're going to jump between them as best we can. 4/10 between the leaders, and right on the tailpipes is Kenton Cook on Ule.
Yeah, this is good stuff right here. Kenton Cook, who was not very experienced with the Assetto Corsa Competizione when we got started, but quickly has come up to speed and has proven to be a consistent challenger at the front. And I think experience is only helping him as he continues to improve his sim racing game. And Ule, this is home field for him, right? This is one of our champion motorsports drivers. Tons of experience.
Oh, Cook out wide.
Yep, absolutely. Just mistimed that a little. Maybe that was the aero wash. And now he's going to have a whole lot of work in front of him to try and make up everything he lost just a moment ago.
Back to the front, Heitkotter and Peril continue to battle nose to tail, and Peril is so close that I think one big dive into the braking zone into the Casio Triangle might get the job done for him, but you risk picking up a penalty for car contact, so I think he's going to be careful about this. With 17 minutes to go, still not to the point yet where I'd consider it necessary to make a dive, but maybe just to unsettle Heitkotter a little bit. I think Heitkotter trusts Peril, and maybe a little bit of distrust is a good thing for the trailing car, just to make the guy check the mirrors another time before he hit the brakes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, actually. It's how reputation can both help and hinder you. Usually you want that positive reputation, but if there is somebody on your tail and you know they can be a bit erratic, it does change the way you drive. It makes you a bit more nervous, a bit more defensive, and I'm with you. I think there is a great deal of trust here as Peril looked to the inside, made a little lunge. Hard to get that done in this part of the track, but just showing that nose, make Brian know you're there. Maybe you force him into an error by doing so. I think that's more likely to work than just flashing those headlights.
He is so close, about a car length between them as they head under the bridge into the hairpin. And one dive will get this done, and Heitkotter already driving defensively. You see him stay to the driver's left side of the racetrack there. Peril going to try to cross him over. Going to be a drag race down a spoon curve here. Maybe the slipstream now going to help Peril's Ferrari get right back up. And that Nissan's got about the aerodynamics of a hippopotamus right now, so it's going to make a big hole in the air.
Yeah, it is a kind of brick-like, but it is a fast brick, that's for sure, and it's got a nice, powerful engine. Ooh, closing in very close to the back there. This is that difficult double apex 13-14 known as spoon curve, leading into a very long high-speed section. Peril closing in, but just not any opportunities presented to this point.
Through 130R, this is where Peril's been setting up a really good run into the Casio Triangle. There he turns it in, a little bit of understeer there for a moment, then the front grips, and now into the braking zone, where he gains almost all of his time for the entire lap, right up to the tailpipes, over the curbs, can't cut him too much, and now they'll run onto the front straight. 15 minutes to go as these two battle. We'll jump quickly back to our third place fight, because here's Kenton Cook on the back of Ule.
And you can see Nelson Mason in the background as well. Not sure if he's closing in on this fight or not, but I'm sure he's an interested spectator. Cook showing the nose just a little bit, taking a different line, trying to find an advantage. Got a nice run here. This might be his opportunity. Ule senses it. He's already guarding the inside.
Yeah, he made a little bit of a mistake, missed the apex to the first right-hander, turn number 16. Now he's going to move back to driver's left. I don't think Kenton's going to dive up underneath in turn one. That's a very scary place to pass in a full-bodied GT car. But here he comes. Now he goes up the inside. What a move by Kenton Cook. And Ule, I think, helped facilitate that, but what a pass for the 59 Aston Martin of Kenton Cook.
Yeah, that was bold, but it was decisive, just what you want to see. We're getting word that Kenton might have cut the corner going back a little bit earlier on that lap. We'll see how the stewards take a look at that as we jump back to our battle for the lead here. Right now, that pass you saw a moment ago was for third place, but this is where all eyes are fixated. We've got the Nissan.
Here he comes up the inside. Dive. They
Oh.
touch. And around goes Heitkotter. And Perel's going to stay put. Now he gets back rolling again. The leaders collide in the hairpin. And where's Kenton Cook? Can he? Oh, he's way far back. He's not going to be close enough. But they get back rolling. I think Perel is hoping that if he gives the spot back, he won't get a penalty. But that was a big mistake for Perel. Too late, too much of a dive. And it got in around and put Heitkotter into a spin. So that's going to be big if Perel gets a penalty.
Yeah, you're right, Peril definitely was waiting, so he didn't gain an advantage from that contact. But going back a couple of races, I remember seeing a discussion between race control and one of our drivers, and I don't remember who it was off the top of my head that was involved in this, but we saw something similar where there was contact, a spin. The driver actually let the car that he had spun back past, and to do so, he actually had to let another car go through, and the steward said that does not make up for the mistake. We still are going to give a penalty for avoidable contact if we deem that necessary. And keep in mind, for people just joining us, we do have real live stewards adjudicating this race. This is not left up to the software to do. So they're going to be taking a close look at that. And I suspect, based on past precedent, unless something has changed, that Peril might be in trouble for avoidable contact. At least from where I'm sitting, that's how I viewed it.
It's going to be really interesting to see what the stewards do here. Again, Peril, I think, immediately realized his mistake and sat there and waited for Highcutter to get back rolling. So I guess all's fair, and at least for the racer's mind, Highcutter gets to keep the lead. But they gave up over 10 seconds to Kenton Cook that time through, which is big. That could be a factor. If these two get tangled again, Kenton Cook can come sailing on through and take the win from both of these drivers. So I think that's a mistake that Peril doesn't want to repeat. We tracks out a little bit wide in turn 7, but we're going to see these guys continue to fight because Peril is faster than Highcutter. He just has to get by him cleanly.
Now, the good news for both of these guys is that they had a big gap back to those that are trying to chase them. These two have been the class of the field from the drop of the green. So really, this is a kind of a private battle between the two of them. And maybe actually that spin keeps them a bit further away from lap traffic. Peril gets a nice run out of that hairpin there. Looks like Highcutter's wider exit maybe let him get back to throttle a bit sooner. Man, this has been a nip and tuck fight. It's such a shame that there was coming together there because it had been tremendous to watch. Personally and selfishly, I hope we don't see a penalty because I would love to see this continue for the next 12 minutes.
Well, the incident is under investigation, the contact between Peril and Highcutter. With 12 minutes to go, this is going to be the outcome of the race. Can Highcutter solidify another race victory after being on the victimized end of a race incident there? He has not had to deal with any sort of incidents, at least from lead lap cars, because usually he's been lapping people. But Peril has been so fast today that Highcutter has been on defense for the latter half of this race, and Peril is hard on offense right now as they bump through the final chicane. As the sun sets, the lights are on here at the racetrack, and 11 minutes to go to settle this score.
Boy, this has been just a fascinating duel between these two, and you bring up a good point. This is uncharted territory for Brian Highcutter, who has been leading basically from the start of every race we've run so far. There was one exception to that, and I think it was Misano. It might have been Paul Ricard, where he ran second for much of that race and was kind of in the David Peril role, actually, putting a lot of pressure on Josh Staffen, who, by the way, will be back with us. He won that race, and he'll be back with us looking ahead to Barcelona next week, which is exciting. That'll just up the ante a little bit further. But in terms of being under sustained pressure for an entire race, Highcutter has not seen anything like this to this point.
And he's doing a really good job defending. I think the problem is he left that hole open into the hairpin. Maybe he prevented him from getting that front to rear contact, but he left just enough space. I think Peril took a bunch of curb, which helped him kind of sneak up the inside, but you can't even leave an inch because the driver will take that position. As you see Highcutter defending middle of the racetrack that time. But I think he's going to be a lot more careful about where he places his car with Peril so close behind. There is a lap car up in front of them. I believe that's Rieger in his Ferrari 488. We'll see if he moves out of the way now.
Hopefully he does. Hopefully we get to a portion of this track where he can relent without compromising himself. There are some places where, as much as you'd like to go wide and help the leaders get through, you really put yourself in a perilous position. So I think we're going to be in a place here shortly when they catch him that the leaders are going to be able to make it through without too much trouble. I certainly hope that's the case and they can continue this fight.
Well, they got that lap car coming up. I know Logan Seavey's worked his way back inside the top 10 right now in his 67 car. Merrill in the 39 is 11th, and Ernesto La Cruz in 12th. Alec Udell, Tom O'Gorman, Kevin Bone, the rest of your top 15. Cook still has third, Ulay back in fourth, and Nelson Mason hangs on to fifth as we go by the lap traffic here of Nico Rieger with 9 minutes to go here at Suzuka Circuit.
I think Highcutter got held up just a little bit. I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure it's enough for Peril, who is close, but he's going to stay in line for now.
He's just biding his time here. I think he learned something with that big dive where he had the contact. If there was space, that might have worked, and I think he's going to put that in the back of his mind here, especially into that chicane after 130 yard, the Casio Triangle. If you can dive up underneath there and have the space to work with, you're going to be in a good spot. This is something that you see. This is a move that I think you can kind of plan out in advance, very much like you can at Watkins Glen International up in upstate New York. The final corner is a left-right combination. That's sort of what we have here at Suzuka. When you go through 130 yard, it's a left-hander. If you just stay on the right side of the racetrack where you track out, you'll have a passing line into that chicane, just like you do at Watkins Glen. So we'll see if Peril tries something like that here in the closing moments.
Well, I think you're right that it is a move that you need to plan in advance, and that's what he's doing here. He's learning the tendencies of Highcutter ahead of him and trying to figure it out. And these passes on a technical track like Suzuka, they start maybe even a half a lap ahead. Oh, there's the word right there. You can see it on the screen, the red DT next to David Perril's name. That is not what he and his legion of fans wanted to see. Yeah,
it looks like they have been assigned a drive-through penalty, and that's just a consistency thing. I think the stewards probably wanted to let that one go, but based on past decisions that we've seen in previous weeks, just for consistency's sake, they can't let that one slide there, Ryan. So unfortunately, this battle is going to come to an end as Peril has to hit pit lane. I'm sure he'll be fighting this as hard as he can in terms of any communication that he has with the race control. But I'm not going to say that he's got to serve it until he does, but we'll see as he's running the tailpipes of the leader as they come down the hill in 18.
Well, one thing that he can try to do, again, is just run fast laps here to mitigate the time loss when he has to serve that penalty. At this point, it's about trying to find a way to still be on the podium. Kenton Cook is quite a ways back, but I think he would lose that third spot based on just a quick bit of math in my head, which is always a scary proposition. But the big thing here, though, is when you've been handed that drive-through, the last thing you want to do is anything that would affect a car and its position around you, right? If there was to be contact again, that would be very, very, very frowned upon. Because you're basically running in a position that is not true to where you ought to be on the track, having served that penalty. So he needs to be fast, but he needs to be very careful not to draw any further ire of our stewards.
Yeah, we have heard that he is protesting this penalty, and I think that's a good idea. Protest this penalty as much as possible, because if you can get this cleared and continue your battle for the lead, this changes everything. So if I'm Peril, do not serve this penalty. Wait to get the automatic disqualification, because you're better off fighting this and maybe getting it turned over than you are just pitting early and then not being able to get your time back on the racetrack. So Peril should just keep doing what he's doing. And again, like you said, be careful not to draw any more ire, as you put it, but stay out there on the racetrack while you protest this and try to get this penalty cleared.
That's right. Just really a difficult situation for everybody involved. I know our stewards, they want to have a good race here, but they also want to be fair. From what I've been told, and I didn't get to watch the European SRO race earlier today, but I guess there was a similar incident and they let that go, but I'm not sure it's the same stewarding group. So that kind of adds to the complexity of this situation. I give Peril credit. He recognized he made a mistake, and he sat there and he let Highcutter.
Here he comes!
As he takes a look.
Up the inside, and Highcutter's going to give him the spot as the 111 runs a little bit wide, so Peril takes the lead. And now I wonder if Highcutter knows that Peril is protesting this, because if he gets this cleared now, that just changed the outcome of the race. Now he's going to move over and maybe give this spot back. They're going to run side by side down the front straight, but they're running door to door, and if Highcutter lets him go and the penalty gets cleared, that's going to be a huge mistake on Highcutter's part. So he can't assume that he has to serve this penalty until the very last lap of this race.
Yeah, I really think, I could be wrong, because I'm actually not sure what the user interface within ACC shows you. So I don't know if Highcutter is aware of Peril's drive-through. I suspect he is, but I can't say that definitively. And if that is true, and he knows that Peril owes a drive-through, it sure looked like he did not put up much of a fight. And that, I think, puts you in a tough spot here as a stewarding group. You really can't rescind this penalty, because Highcutter probably would have acted differently had he known that there was a chance the drive-through could be rescinded, if you see where I'm going with this. Yeah,
I think that's, again, that was a mistake.
It does show it on the user interface, so he should be aware.
All right, we're going to see what happens here. We're also getting word that Logan Seavey still in 10th, but Tom O'Gorman's worked his way up back from that early crash up into 12th position, so he's having a solid run. No other major changes as we follow this drama at the front of the field with 4 minutes to go. No update so far on what the situation is, but Peril is going to run out of laps to serve the drive-through. It becomes a time penalty at the end of the race, and of course that would drop him down the order. Again, I don't want to say anything until we have confirmation of what this outcome is going to be, because I don't want to be wrong about it right now.
Yeah, I understand that completely. And I think, too, yes, it does transition into a time penalty at the end, but I think you have a certain number of laps to serve it. I believe that number is 3. And what are we on here? This is either the second or third lap that he's been running since that penalty was issued. So this is a complicated situation, to be sure.
Yeah, and I don't even know what you do as a steward now because Highcutter gave up that spot. As you mentioned, he probably would have acted differently. So now do you ask Peril? Oh, here he comes to pit lane.
That answers that.
So Peril hits pit lane, and just like that, Brian Highcutter on the receiving end of the drama in the hairpin a couple laps ago will extend his lead out now to double-digit seconds over our new second-place driver, which will be Kenton Cook, and the number 59 Aston Martin. Peril hits pit lane, and that drama for now is over, at least on the racetrack. I'm sure post-race there's going to be quite a bit of drama with that. I can't imagine Peril will be thrilled about that, but Highcutter now takes over the lead with an enormous lead, 12 seconds over Kenton Cook.
Well, there you go. It shows you just how realistic sim racing is, because we're going to have post-race controversy about penalties. This feels like the real thing to me. It's a real shame, no question about it. That was an awesome fight at the front of the field. It was so much fun to watch. Really hate that we saw it broke it up the way that it was. Ultimately, I do agree completely with the steward's decision. It fits with what we've seen earlier in the season. I like consistency more than anything else out of stewards, and I don't think they had much of a choice. The fact that Peril was actively seeking to give that position back to Highcutter indicates that he realized he had made a mistake. So I don't think there's any doubt about where the blame lies in that contact. I don't think it was malicious, but I do think that of the two, the onus is on Peril to make that pass cleanly, and he wasn't going to do that. So based on earlier precedent, I think it was the right choice to give the drive-through penalty, as much as it pains me to say it, because that fight at the front was shaping up to be absolutely epic.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree slightly, and I think the consistency piece is important, and yes, it is in line, but I do think there is some level of per incident what's the word I'm looking for? I think there needs to be, I don't want to say common sense because that sounds sort of wrong, but you get where I'm going with that. Per incident, I don't think it's terrible to look at the circumstances and say, well, yeah, in this particular instance for the race lead, he gave the spot back, didn't take any advantage from it. It was late in the race, no other cars were involved. That's the kind of thing I would probably let go. But again, the stewards have the ultimate decision here as Highcutter is working his way through what should be the second to last lap here, or it could be working his way through the S's now with 50 seconds left. I would imagine this would be white flag, but I'm not seeing the final lap notification just yet.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. Let's take a moment to reflect on what Brian Highcutter has accomplished. And you'll recall, if you were with us back at the Laguna Seca round that started GT Rivals, you asked me who the favorite was going to be, and both of us were in agreement. Brian Highcutter, given his sim racing experience and real-world prowess, was going to be the guy to watch. And what has he done? He finished first at Laguna, fifth at Misano, despite really having a chance to win that race. That was lap traffic that cost him a chance there. He won at Paul Ricard, he won at Spa, and he's a lap or two away from winning here at Suzuka as well. This has been a tour de force from Brian Highcutter, who has just been picture perfect every time we've seen him on track in our series.
See the white flag flying there now officially, so Highcutter will be coming back to the checkered flag this time after a dramatic race with Peril. It's going to come down to a fairly anticlimactic end for Highcutter. Kenton Cook, though, I'm not going to say anything. We're just going to let him cross the line before I say anything more about Kenton Cook, just so that he doesn't hate me later.
Yes, exactly. Poor guy has had no luck, if not bad luck. So, yes, we'll just leave it at that for now.
So through the Casio Triangle for the final time, Brian Highcutter's got lap traffic. It doesn't matter. It's a long ways back to second place Kenton Cook. But Brian Highcutter outlasts the drama after contact with David Perel. He's going to come across the line, checkered flag here, and he'll take the win at Suzuka Circuit.
The leader has finished the race.
Definitely the most hard fought of his wins so far, but third in a row, fourth in total, hasn't finished worse than fifth. What a season this is becoming for Brian Heitkotter. And here he is, Kenton Cook gets it done.
Finally one without drama. Here is battle for fifth. It's Andrew Worden in the 616 and David Peril in the 111. As they come across the line, it'll be a sixth place result, but it was not the race win or second place that he could have had, and I'm sure I'd like to get a word with him if possible. We'll see if we can do that in a little while. Kenny Murillo looks like he scored ninth as he comes across the line. Logan Seavey in his number 67 Mercedes, a good run for him today. He'll come back with a top 10 result, Ryan. So the dirt track racer, also not too bad and not too shabby at sports car racing.
Man, that's awesome. I love having Logan in the championship. Keep in mind, again, he does most of his racing in USAC. USAC is the sanctioning body for SRO America, so there is that tie-in there. Man, I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see some of the USAC regulars joining us. We've got Jared Andretti, who does a bit of both already, and it'd be awfully cool to see more of those guys make that transition.
Here's Tom O'Gorman, of course, the Republic of Gamers, ASUS, and Valvoline-sponsored cars. He comes across the start-finish line for a 13th place finish after the disastrous start that he had this race. Going to end on an okay note. Kevin Bohm comes home 14th after he served a penalty from contact on lap 3. John Miller in the 38 car will bring it home in 15th place. He's got Jason Alexandritis behind him in the 21 car. But that is almost it for our lead lap drivers. But Heitkotter again on top of the scoring pylon at the end of the race. And it was a dramatic one for sure. Probably the most dramatic race of the season so far, Ryan. But a familiar face at the top of the pylon at the end of the night.
Well, dramatic, and for several reasons. One, we had the absolute best battle for the lead that we have seen so far in our GC Rivals season, and it lasted almost the duration of our 60-minute race. But on the other side, as the fireworks go off, we have the drama of the penalty, how that was handled. I think it's going to make for a fascinating post-race. Can't wait to hear firsthand from some of our protagonists.
Here's a look at your race results. It was Heitkotter at the top of the board. 30 laps complete. It was 11.2 seconds back to Kenton Cook, who finally gets a race finished and complete on the podium in his number 59 Aston Martin V8 Vantage. And it was Ulay in third. A really solid run by one of the champion motorsports drivers. Of course, Worden with a fourth place finish. That was great for him. And Peril comes home in fifth. Scored there, like he was battling for sixth place, but has been corrected up into fifth. So looks like he'll still get a top 5 finish, but it's not going to make up for what could have been today.
Yeah, disappointing for sure, but so good to have him in the championship, although it looks like we might have had some changes there all of a sudden. Are you seeing the same thing I am?
Yes, so... looks like he's back. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but I do know that, it is sixth place, so there was a correction there. All right, so sixth place for Peril. The rest of your results, we scroll down the order. There is Guy Cosmo down in 25th place. Of course, Colin Mullen didn't have an amazing day either. He comes home in 18th, but our top 10, pretty standard fare there, but for everybody else, Grohovic didn't have a great day, neither did Rieger in the 27th place Ferrari 488. So a bit of a shake-up at the start with that early crash, but some great action up towards the front.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go back to the early stages, the first third of this race, we had that battle from third to eighth, all in our screen at the same time, mixing it up, and there was a period where they were side by side, several rows deep through the S-curves, which you don't see every day, and they kept it pretty clean. So really, from the drop of the green, the quality of racing was very, very high. It was very exciting. And then that transitioned into that battle for the lead that we talked about, it seemed like, for about 40 minutes there at the end.
So we got our top 3. We're also looking for David Peril as well to talk to him about his race, but we're standing by, or at least Ryan is, with Brandon Ulay in the third place car, the 333 Mercedes. Ryan.
Well, congratulations on a podium run, tops of the Champion Motorsports team. Take us through your race. It seemed like you were right there in the thick of things and some really fierce battling, really from the word go.
Well, I stole pole position, which was a huge advantage, but Brian was a little bit braver than me on the cold tires, and I didn't want to crash. And then I spun myself a little bit in 130, but overall, a good recovery without losing very much time.
Who were some of the folks you were fighting with today? What were some of your favorite battles on track?
I think at the end there with Kenton, he was really tracking me down, and he made a really nice sort of pass in through the first turn there. But he was behind me, and I knew he was a bit quicker through the first sector, but I held on for quite a few laps before he went.
Taking a look at the names joining you on the podium, Brian Heidkotter really needs no introduction. Kenton Cook, a class winner at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Some of these other drivers in this field as well. Really a who's who. What is it like for you coming from the sim racing world to be mixing it up and beating a lot of these big names?
I'm just pretty grateful for the opportunity and Josh setting this up and giving me the opportunity to race with these.
Well, it's been a thrill having you here. Thank you so much for the time. Congratulations on the podium, and hope to see you in a future race as well.
Thank you.
Got Kenton Cook standing by. Second place today, Kenton. Finally, a race that went without a hitch and battling Ulle for the majority of the event, but you came home in second after the drama up at the front of the field. Finally get one all the way done without any drama. I didn't say anything. I didn't give you the commentator's curse this time, so I think we just got to not talk about you more. But second place today in your Aston Martin. Walk us through your night.
Yeah, it was honestly the same goal as last time, to not get a penalty. And this time I succeeded, which was good. Yeah, I honestly didn't think I was gonna get a P2 after falling back to, or qualifying 8th, and then, making a little mistake, and well, I guess staying in 8th there. It kind of worked way through some traffic, and it was a good little battle with Brendan, and man, that's it's tricky to see the where the cars are different and where the pace is. One car's better in a straight line, one car's better on the brakes. You really have to time the runs that you have to be able to take advantage of the strengths, and it's really tricky to do that. And that's why I couldn't quite get to Brendan. I had to make sure I positioned myself just right, and I needed him to make a mistake, and thankfully he did in the final corner. But it was good, clean race in there.
Suzuka, obviously very different from some of the past racetracks we've done, very technical in many ways. Tell me about this racetrack in terms of the difficulty of passing. You mentioned the differences between the race cars. It seems like there are a couple sectors around this track that are really follow the leader corners, like the S's, and then you get to the backside of the course and there's some better opportunities. Where did you find yourself making the most moves today?
It was kind of everywhere, because I passed people in the I passed Christian in the first set of S curves there, just because he was really struggling in one corner, and then you really just have to be able to take advantage of where people aren't as strong, and try to just minimize where you're weak. It's kind of hard to make sure you're fast on a straightaway, but all you can do is make sure you're getting good exits, so you don't open yourself up. But yeah, I mean, turn 1 and 2 was decent, the S curves, but Rick, man, it was really hard to make moves when you don't have a straight line. You just had to rely on everyone else falling off the road, which most people did, unfortunately, but it made my life a little easier.
All right, well, second place for the B Sport Racing 59. Kenton, thank you so much. And it looks like we've got Ryan Marine standing by with our race winner, Brian Heidkotter.
Well, Brian, a third consecutive win, your fourth in GT Rivals competition. Congratulations, but that one had a different flavor to it. You had a lot of pressure from behind for the bulk of that race. What were you doing? What were you thinking to try and keep David Perel behind you?
Yeah, that was a great race. It felt like I started to suffer some graining or something about 20 minutes into the race, so I was really struggling for grip. And I knew David was coming, and so I was just trying to, turn my laps and keep the tires underneath me. And it's so hard to pass here. We had a really good battle. I'm pretty sure he was quicker. The draft helps down a couple of straightaways, but I think he had just more mid-corner grip pretty much everywhere in all the turns. So it was a good, hard battle. Kind of a shame about the drive-through that broke up the battle for the win, but no, it was a great race.
On the subject of the drive-through, take us through the contact from your perspective.
Yeah, I knew he was quick, and he was close going into the hairpin. So I thought I covered the inside fairly well, but he dived down in there anyway. I'll have to look at the replay, to be honest. I'm not sure if he put a wheel in the grass or I turned in on him or what, but he was kind of in my blind spot. So it was nice of him to wait for me. That was really cool.
how aware were you that he had been issued a drive-through penalty, and did that affect the way that you raced him subsequent to that penalty being issued?
Yeah, I saw it come up on my screen several laps later. So when he got close again, I didn't defend into that corner. Kind of no point, because the game will disqualify you automatically if you don't serve the drive-through penalty. So I raced a little different, but hopefully we both put on a good show for everybody.
And once again, 2 races in a day. You did the SRO Europe race earlier. You cap it off with the SRO America race. How much of a strain is it preparing for 2 races on a given weekend?
The toughest part is staying awake for the races. The European races are kind of in the middle of the night my time, so I end up not getting very much sleep for those races and for this race. So yeah, that's been a bit of a struggle. I have to kind of warm myself up every time I go into a session.
Well, you looked awfully good today. Congratulations on a great run. Another win for Brian Highcutter. We look forward to seeing you in virtual Barcelona next week.
I've got David Perrell standing by, who finished 6th place tonight after the drama there with the race leader. David, walk me through, first of all, that pass down there into the hairpin and the subsequent drama that was going on the racetrack. I want to know what was going through your mind there as you were probably fighting that penalty there after the contact. Oh, not sure if we have David around. We'll try to get him a hold of him here. Oh, now we got him. Hey, David, you got a copy? There you are.
I forgot about push to talk. Yeah, I didn't really fight the drive-through. I was actually pretty shocked, to be honest. I thought, okay, maybe a 5-second penalty or something like that. So I was pretty upset with that, to be honest with you. I felt like I had to go for a move there. Well, the reason I went for a move there is because he had the speed on me on the straights. I probably should have gone with a bit less wing. So I felt on that lap I was right behind him, going into the kink, and I thought, if I can try maybe go for a move here, and if he sees me, maybe he'll open the door. I wasn't expecting the red carpet by any stretch. Anyway, the door closed, fair enough, and I spun him around, which wasn't my intention. But I thought that, if I waited for him to get back in the lead, I would minimize the chance of a penalty. Obviously, in hindsight, if I knew differently, I probably would have tried to get away. Probably would have still got me a podium. But yeah, he drove very well. Brian's really fast, and thanks for having me here, guys.
David, thanks so much for giving us your point of view there. It was a pleasure watching you race. You had a ton of pace here today at Suzuka Circuit. We're looking forward to maybe seeing you back here maybe next week at Barcelona.
Yeah, I have to see. Today I also did the Suzuka race. We've been testing the whole week. Had a lot of bad luck today in both races, so I need to take a break from sim racing for a day or two and come back for the SRO events next weekend, and hopefully you guys as well.
All right, thank you so much, David. Appreciate your time. All right.
Appreciate it.
That's going to wrap up the interviews here, Ryan, but what a race we had today up at the front, all throughout the field, but that 2-car duel at the front didn't quite pan out the way we thought it would. We get to do it all over again next week in Barcelona, at Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. So that's going to be a fun one as well, another European racetrack, high speeds, one of those FIA Grade 1 Formula 1 racetracks, so there's a lot of history at that particular track. Your thoughts as we head into and transition into Barcelona next week?
Well, I think it's another great setting for GT Rivals, another great place for the strength of this field to be demonstrated. And speaking of the strength of the field, I'm excited to see the only name that has won a race in GT Rivals other than Brian Highcutter returning. We'll have Josh Staffen back in the field. He was the winner at Paul Ricard in our 3rd round of the season. He's been taking a couple races off here as the Champion Motorsports folks kind of rotate through, and I'm really curious to have him back and see what that means. Hopefully David Perrell is back. We keep seeing such good things from Kenny Murillo and Christian Shimshak, who weren't there early in the season. So the strength of the field just keeps growing. Those that are regulars, they get more and more experience. They're stronger and stronger, it seems like, as with each passing week. So I think we're in store for another battle royale. This was amazing action here at Suzuka. I hope we see something of a similar level looking ahead to next week in Spain.
Really looking forward to it. Ryan, thank you for joining me. Before we get going tonight, it's your last opportunity, of course, to enter the giveaway in the link in chat below to win yourself an ASUS TUF Gaming graphics card as well as a copy of Assetto Corsa Competizione. So make sure you enter that to win those items there. Again, there'll be another one next week at Barcelona. Thank you so much to our sponsors, of course, all the people and partners behind the scenes that help us do this, especially from SRO America. And again, happy Mother's Day to everybody at home. And I know the typical audience for these sort of things is typically more male than female, but to all those men watching, make sure you wish your mother a happy Mother's Day. Give them a call and give them a hug if you're there, but properly social distance if you haven't been. But this is looking forward to a good week next week for round number 6 of the GT Rivals Esports Invitational. We'll see you next week at Barcelona.